Hey, friends. Thank you for joining me again. I am with the Reverend Dr. Giovanni Arroyo, the General Secretary of our General Commission on Religion and Race. Hello, Dr. Arroyo. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Reverend Doris, for having me.
I'm so glad you're with us. We're here today to talk about ballot number 3 of our constitutional amendments that we'll be voting on at annual conference. Ballot number 3 is about paragraph 5, Article 5, right? But before we dive into that, tell us a little bit about the General Commission on Religion and Race.
Well, Doris, the General Commission on Religion and Race was created in 1968 when the United Methodist Church was created. It was created to address and challenge institutional racism within the United Methodist Church. Our vision and our mission is very clear in the Book of Discipline, which says that we are called to challenge, lead, and equip the people of the United Methodist Church to become interculturally competent, ensure institutional equity, and facilitate vital conversations about religion, race, and culture. And some of the ways we do this is by providing trainings and resources for clergy and laity to engage in those vital conversations about race and culture and faith. We offer programs and grants to empower local churches and conferences to build more inclusive and just communities. And we advocate for policies and practices that promote equity and dismantle racial discrimination within our denomination. At GCORR, we believe that racial justice is spiritual work. Our vision for the United Methodist Church is to be a bold witness for equity, inclusion, and Christ-like love for a diverse world. And that's why it was so critical for us to submit Article 5 revisions to this General Conference to make that even more clearer as a church.
So Article 5, I mean, the regular person, of course, is not reading the Book of Discipline every single day, so we don't know what Article 5 is. Could you share a little bit about what Article 5 is and what those changes were?
Well, Article 5 is about what is the church's understanding on racial justice constitutionally. Where do we stand on racial justice? And it has called the church to speak out on the whole reality of the value of each person, and that we are a church that advocates for racial justice. But it was really more of a article that spoke about it, but didn't bring much action. So what we have done is that we presented a revision of the whole article. It's not just a couple of things, it's the whole rewrite of Article 5 to the Constitution. And the recent changes will strengthen our denomination's commitment to being an actively anti-racist and inclusive church. And some of the key updates in this article were like explicitly naming the church's commitment to racial equity rather than just opposing discrimination. The whole thing was expanding the language to include global perspectives on racial justice, acknowledging that racial and ethnic injustices manifest differently in various contexts. We are a worldwide church. It also strengthened accountability measures for the church at all levels to actively work against racism and systemic oppression. So it really moved us from being a passive denomination to be an active anti-racist church.
Wow. Well, these are really big goals, and it's really important to name all of these things, and especially the active part, right? The parts where we actually actively name, actively participate. So how do we move into that instead of just in theory? I love that. The question I have next is, so what does this mean for the local church?
You know, local churches, I believe, is where faith meets action. And I think if we think about how these changes matter, it really, for the local church, I think it reaffirms that every congregation has a role in justice. It's not just for denominational leaders, but every single disciple of Christ in our United Methodist beloved church has a role in seeking racial justice. I think it also sets expectations for local churches to engage in anti-racist ministry, ensuring that inclusion is woven into worship, leadership, and our community outreach. I think it also empowers lay members, to challenge racial injustice in their own communities, equipping them to be stronger in their voice as a public witness of who Christ is, and to be even stronger theologically foundation
Yeah.
why they act on these matters. So, we claim to be a mosaic, a body that's diverse, and these commitments must be key, and it should be the root of every person, every pulpit, every ministry. This this is why creating the faith communities, we talk about being welcoming and being valuing and treating with dignity,
Yeah.
and we must be anti-racist.
Yeah. Yeah. Certainly, I know in conversation with some of our lay members of annual conferences or of this annual conference that there is a desire, a curiosity, and even an eagerness to do this work. But sometimes they just don't know how. They don't know where to start, right? They're not sure exactly what to do, and they don't want to get it wrong either, right? So, what kind of advice would you offer to them?
Well, I think first of all is acknowledging that you have a desire, and that's important. Many people better to explore where they are. And sometimes when we think we know, we may do harm.
Yeah.
And so living by the Western principles, do good, do no harm, and stay in love with God. So one of the ways that I would invite people to consider is to explore GCORR's website,
Yeah.
gcor.org, where you have a lot of different resources, a lot of resources.
A lot. Yeah. There is.
That's really could start with just basic education. A series called What Is. So if you don't know what is racism, or what is systemic oppression, or what is colonialism, it provides you a definition, it provides you a foundation, it provides you example, it invites you to even engage with others in conversation around those topics.
Yeah.
We have a whole vital conversation series, which is a video-based curriculum on different topics that will help people engage. And so there are different entry points that we could engage in. I would also recommend that reach out to your conference commission on religion and race of the New York Conference.
Right. That's right.
That is a gateway also for you to engage with and say, this is where we are. We need help. We might be able to contextually help you figure out what are some ways to connect. The other thing I would say is sometimes you feel like you're the only one doing it.
That's right.
So connect. Connect it all.
That's right.
And other local churches in your area or other churches who are doing it already, and talk to them and see what did they do. Are there things that you could actually take from their learnings to incorporate in your ministry context?
Right.
We need to be willing to share with each other what is working and also teach each other what to do.
Yeah. That's right.
That also is important. It's not always getting it right. It's also identify where things could go wrong and how to avoid that so that we don't do harm.
That's right. In our churches, you can look at your neighboring churches, cooperative parishes, right? That's something that we do in the New York Conference. What's going on in your cooperative parish? Also, there's all district resources, and you can reach out to me and most certainly reach out to our Conference Commission on Religion and Race, which currently is being chaired by Reverend Dr. Marva Escher-Kerr. This has been yeah, that's right. This has been a really great conversation. I just want to remind you that all of this is wonderful conversation, and of course, this is the work of the New York Conference. We value and we embrace the work of racial justice, but it's time for us, New Yorkers, New York Annual Conference folks, to be able to help the entire global church, right, our worldwide United Methodist Church, to have a pathway to do this too. So we're encouraging you to vote yes on ballot number 3. That's ballot number 3 that has the changes that we're talking about in paragraph 5, article 5, right? And so that make a plan to vote, register when the registration opens on the day of voting. Please be in your seat in the bar of the conference with your device, ready to go, right? Ready to go. It's been really great talking with you, Reverend Dr. Arroyo. Is there one last big takeaway you'd like for us to remember?
I would say this. By voting in ballot 3, yes, you're saying that racial justice is no longer just an aspiration. It is a mandate for the United Methodist Church. And by us strengthening Article 5, we are making a clear and bold commitment that our church will actively engage in the work of equity, inclusion, and anti-racism. And this is a call to every United Methodist clergy and laity alike, to be part of
Yep.
this transformation. So it's about changing lives and conduce through love and justice of Jesus Christ. And we can make this happen with that vote.
Yes, wonderful. Thank you so much. Amen. Amen. Let's pass the offering plate.